Good morning and welcome to the Early Bird Gets the Word daily devotion as we continue the series Beyond Circumstance. Some of the greatest memories that I have is when I was a young child on my grandmother's porch or her sister's porch, and that they would tell us stories. I just remember on a summer night, we would be out there and we would just, as children, be begging them, tell us another story. Tell us another story. Well, my grandmother also had a phrase that she would say to us as her grandchildren sometimes when we were talking. She was asking us a question and she'd say, "Now, John Ross, you're telling me a story." But it wasn't the same type of story that she would tell us that we begged for so much because they were great storytellers. She was telling me, "You're telling me a lie." Well, I think storytelling, we all have it, whether it's sometimes it might be a lie, sometimes it's an actual story. But storytelling, I think, is becoming a lost art. My grandmother's generations were phenomenal storytellers. They would keep you hooked, and all you wanted to hear was to keep hearing that story. And I think it's something they developed because they didn't have all this technology that we had that distracts us from human interaction. But they would tell these stories. And we think about what God has done for us. And God, I do believe, has hardwired us for story, to tell stories, to listen to stories, to be involved in stories. Think about Jesus. And some of the greatest lessons that he taught was through a type of story called a parable. Well, I want to talk about today the stories that we tell. The stories that we tell. See, earlier in the week, we've been really focusing on our thinking from Philippians 4:8, when Paul says, "Whatsoever things are true." And at the end of that, he says, "Think on these things." So we should be thinking about the things that are true. And as I thinking about what is true, I think about the stories that we tell. And what I mean by this is not the lies that we believe like we talked about yesterday, because we all believe lies and we have these deeply ingrained lies in ourselves that we've believed about ourselves. But I want to talk to you about the stories that we tell about others. So I want to give you an example of this and what I mean. Because I was in a meeting one time, and it came down to two sides and a decision. We were going to do something or we were not going to do something. And I was on the side to say, let's go ahead and do it. And another guy was like, no. Now, there was more people that on both sides of that, but ended up being voted on that we go forward with it. Well, this one particular gentleman got particularly upset about it. And I was just like, why is he so upset about that? And that's probably where my problem come in, because when we start trying to determine somebody else's intent or somebody else's motive, we're prone to tell a story about that person. And see, here's what I did. God is omniscient. That means God is all-knowing. God does know the very intent of our hearts, but guess what? We do not know the intent of other people's heart. Neither should we try to determine people's intent nor their motive, because when we do that, we get in trouble. And here's what I did. This guy was upset, and I was like, why is he so upset about this? And then I started writing the story in my mind. And what I did in this story is I started saying, he is probably upset about this because of this. And he probably don't want this to go through because he wanted this, this, and this. You see what I was doing? I was telling a story in my mind of what he was intending, of what his motive was, and I never knew that. And it wasn't until the next morning I was driving back into work and God convicted me. And he said, John Ross, you don't know what that man intended. You don't know his motive. And here's what I realized, that I started telling a story in my head about that man because of what I started thinking. And none of it was true, because I didn't know the intent of his heart. I didn't know his motive, but I started telling a story. Friends, and not only did I tell a story, many times when we tell these stories, we make people the villains of our story. So I want to ask you today, this is something you have to participate in. I can't do it for you. Is there people in your life? Is there groups in your life that you have told a story about and you've made them the villain of your story because of something that you thought, but it's not true? What are the facts? Did they tell you that? And do you know it with 100% certainty because it came from their mouth? Or did you try to determine their motive and their intent, and you've told a story that you've told so many times that now it has become a truth to you when it has been a lie? Maybe you need to make amends. Maybe you need to go say, I'm sorry. Maybe you need to say, God, help me not to tell a story anymore. Whatsoever things are true, my friends, think on these things. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Please remember to share this. It's you that multiplies the message when you share this with others. Lord willing, we'll see you Monday morning. Oh, excuse me. Tuesday morning. We'll be off for Monday for Labor Day. Tuesday morning for another Early Bird Gets the Word Daily Devotion. We'll see you then.